Drum roll. Boom! According to that, I am live. Welcome. This is Tokyo Tonight. My name is Hiko Simon. Here at 10:30 p.m. every week, live on YouTube. But of course, you can also listen to the audio version afterwards on Anchor FM. Great to see everybody already piling into the chat. Hope you've all had a good week. Yeah, it's been. I suppose. I mean, like most places, the Ukraine war is still dominating the news cycle in most places. In terms of just the general state of Tokyo, it is spring. It's getting to be nice weather. It looks like we are just on the verge of sakura, cherry blossom season starting. The official cherry blossom index in Tokyo is apparently measured by, of all places, one of the best places to see cherry blossoms in Tokyo during cherry blossom season happens to be Yasukuni Shrine, the sort of infamous, shrine war shrine, with of course the controversial museum attached to it. It is a fascinating place, but it's got this huge garden and all of these sakura trees around it. And they measure, I think it's when 5 trees, or is it 5 blossoms on one tree, or something like that. There's a measure like that of when they bloom. Then they announced that in Tokyo it's officially cherry blossom season, and that was today. So cherry blossom season just starting. Next week should be really good, possibly even doable the week after. I mean, trees sort of blossom at different times. It only lasts really for about 2 or 3 weeks. I just realized as well, because I got boosted, which I've got as one of my topics, not that there's a lot to talk about that, but I did get my 3rd shot this week. Just again, because doing intense exercise like after the shot's meant to be not very good for you. So I was all like G'd up thinking, I'm going to plan a whole bunch of runs and I'll shoot videos going through runs where there are a lot of cherry blossom trees. I just realized I'm probably, I guess maybe in about a week's time I might start jogging gently. But of course, with the vaccines, they do say take it easy. With intense exercise, and that is the definition of what running is. So, the one thing I do like about this watch is why things, it looks like an analog watch, and the battery lasts for like a month. It's rechargeable, but it does actually monitor your heart rate. So, and it syncs with your phone, which I love. So I use this when I'm running, and I can actually use that when I'm like live when I'm running. Sometimes what I did after the last shot was I would go out on runs and I'd make it a goal to like not let my heart rate get above a certain level. So I basically almost go to a very light, almost walking sort of pace. It's actually lets you do long, very controlled runs, and it actually helped a lot with the fitness. So I'll do that again. I was actually the fittest I've ever been since I started running, actually, this week. The fastest 6K I've done in probably my entire life. I ran in high school. And I remember I ran, I've got this thing where I thought I ran 5K in 15 minutes once, which I couldn't have done, although it was like the final, like nearly 2 kilometers was on a horse racing track. So it was like, and it was on a trots track. It wasn't like dirt. It was like a sort of seashells. It was like almost like running on concrete. So it was super fast, and I was like 16 years old, so I could probably, but there again, you know what, I wonder if I'm actually faster now than I was back then, and it's the first time I've even thought that. So a bit of a bummer to be back into the, taking it easy stage and getting unfit again. And it takes ages. It's like weight comes on easily and takes ages to get off, and it's the inverse with fitness. It's easy to lose and takes ages to get back, but I've been in really good shape lately, and I've been enjoying that. So especially with the spring season, so I do want to get back into the running soon. A bunch of big things I will be talking about. For example, we had quite a big earthquake this week, the biggest earthquake we've had certainly since the big one in 2011, just after the 11-year anniversary. And of course in a similar location, just off Fukushima. The old one was off Miyagi. It was further north. But more kind of surprisingly was the blackout aspect, and I'll talk about that tonight as well. COVID numbers in Tokyo, for those who are interested, I mean, again, very quietly, the government keeps opening the pipe, which is wonderful for people who have been waiting to get into Japan on a student visa or on a work visa. It's been getting better and better. They've been, you can see that they are basically opening at such a pace. If you're interested in coming here as a traveler or as a tourist, I reckon it might certainly by the fall, to say it in the American way, because trees fall. Trees fall, leaves fall. We say autumn in New Zealand, but I would say even maybe late summer, we could be seeing tourism going back if they clear this backlog, and it looks like they're going to clear it a lot faster than I first thought they were going to, provided everything keeps going okay. In terms of the numbers, it's like today was like 6,000. Every day is basically like 2,000 less than the week before, and it's dropping. It's kind of dropping slowly. It's not the normal sort of, the drop is not matching the rise. It is funny how 6,000 now doesn't feel like per day in Tokyo doesn't feel like many cases after we got up to 20,000 or whatever for a time. But that said, I mean, the highest peak we had ever had before this wave was the previous wave where the peak was 5,000, and we're still above that, so it still isn't good. Also, the fact that the cases are the decline is slowing, and the fact that it's getting warm and everyone's about to go have hanami parties. It means that there's normally a 2-week lag from things like holidays or times of year where lots of people go out and meet for that to start again. So I'm guessing 2 weeks after Hanami, it may very, very well stop or even go up again a little bit, but hopefully that'll just be a blip. It is a good overall trend. It's a good time to be in Tokyo, and still not good. Still, certainly what wasn't happening before was there are more and more people I know who are getting it, or people around me that are getting it. It does feel inevitable that, if this trend where it's going to sort of get weaker and more endemic and become more like the flu or the cold, which it's by all accounts not quite yet, it still is definitely something you don't want to get. People still do die of it. It does have a higher death rate than the flu. But it's clearly getting to be something that at some point, if you just look at the 6 waves until now, it looks like the next one's probably going to be more contagious and less virulent. And you know what? Maybe it's inevitable, like other things going around. I feel lucky so far, but I don't take it for granted. So yeah, but that said, it is remarkable the death per capita rate in Tokyo or in Japan. The only countries that have done better are countries like New Zealand and Taiwan and mainland China. Most of which have used really hard lockdown strategies. Got into an internet fight debating that, in fact, the other day. In fact, there were 2 internet fights. I was very busy, and I made flippant. Well, I think people were looking to pick internet fights with me over comments I made too quickly, and I probably put them down a bit too quickly. But anyway, I'll get into that later. Let's see who's in the chat. It's always good to see who's here. I'm glad to see so many people already rocking in. We've got Sergeant Bilko, great to see you, Mr. Cordy Chep, and below that, Shubas, in from the beginning, warmed up with that Panamanian coffee that I am always so jealous of. Great to see you in there. We've got, who else? Kerberos Tenshi, great to see you, and of course Shubas is early. Honestly, I give everybody a head start anyway by being a little bit late, but everyone's in there. Quint Rankid, great to see you. Who else we got in here? Kerberos Tenshi, PB, good to see you, PB. I always worry I'm going to miss somebody. Odie Jr., boom, good to see you, and not late indeed. Ada Void, good morning, top of the morning to you. We've got Butter Boom from Aaron, great to have you as always, our wonderful moderator. Really appreciate how you keep the Russian invasion bots under control in the chat. We have Hey Eddie, good to see you. Hey Eddie, early indeed, great to have you in here. Wow, everyone's here this week. This is awesome. We've got Justin Connolly, long time no see, great to have you back. We've got Dan H, great to see you as always. We have our representative from the Philippines, John Carlo Lanoy, good to have you in here. DJ Sunny Side Up. I saw you. I couldn't log on at the time that I saw, but I saw that you were live streaming when you were going out surfing today. Jealous and awesome. Did a YouTube live beats making session in a public bathroom. Cool. Is the video still live? I know you recorded it live. Do you leave the videos up? I should go check that out. And what were you using? I'm curious. Tell me what your setup was. Robert Brooker, good to see you, and greetings indeed. We've got who else we got in here? One Johnson, Wave, good to see you. Tokyo 503. Do I have thoughts on Better Call Saul? Hell yes. Ken Tanaka's of course not the same person as David Yuri. He is his twin brother. That was fully explained in the Help Me Find Parents series. Okay, let me come back to that because I've said this before. You should all know I love. There are a few things that my life is looking forward to more at the moment. Is it 4/18? They actually put the date as little Easter eggs in some of the teaser trailers for the new and final series of Better Call Saul. Better Call Saul is for me one of the best series ever made about anything. And the fact that this is the final one, and the fact that it's a tragedy. Well, not only do you know it's a tragedy because you know what's happening in Breaking Bad, but I'm already starting it. I can't help myself. I'm just going to keep going. So many of the characters that I love and that I've grown to love in Better Call Saul are not in Breaking Bad. So you know that, some really intense stuff is going to happen in this final season. And, I think the weakness of a lot of American TV, they've learned to embrace darkness a little bit more, but there is this thing that commercial television in America just can't quite stomach, the idea of the hero dying, or there's always got to be some form of happy end, or satisfying resolution, or good defeating evil that happens. Of course, I'm sure there are many exceptions, but the point is, European cinema and TV, for example, is always much more willing to, break that expectation. It's something that when you're in New Zealand and you're watching stuff in equal amounts from, UK and Europe and from America, growing up, the American stuff always feels more formula. And what I love is Netflix is growing out of that, and Better Call Saul is just a great example of genuinely, like the anti-hero thing. The things I love about it are, one, that it's not just it's not like a lovable bad guy. It's not like and I haven't watched Dexter, and I can't get into the premise of a likable serial killer who just kills other serial killers, so he's an okay guy. Let them just be bad and unlikable. So people are afraid of that, but Saul Goodman is unlikable. He is an unlikable hero, but you don't watch it. If it was all about him, and he's a great character, but it's not just him, it's every character in the script. They let every character breathe. They're not someone walk into a room and, special delivery. Everybody gets enough time to develop, and the characters on the show are all fascinating, deep, interesting people, and all flawed and bad. And that's what I love. About that show. So David Urey coming back, Spooge, I think was his name, when he showed up in Breaking Bad. The tradition of Breaking Bad characters, of course, coming back into Better Call Saul. This time, slight spoiler alert for Breaking Bad. If you haven't watched Breaking Bad by now, I watched it 5 years after Breaking Bad was on TV. So at this point, it's like 20 years ago or something. But, of course, David Urey ended up with his head being replaced by an ATM machine. So good to see him without the ATM machine for a head and speaking normally. In the teaser trailer that came out just a short spec, but it was building up to, this is how he became every criminal scumbag's favorite lawyer. And the fact that it's David Urey, like, you're the guy. Oh, man, it is just, I say this, it's kind of funny. As someone who is a lawyer, with at times complexes about that, I can tell you, I love legal dramas, but my favorite legal movie, and by the way, the only other lawyers I've ever met who consider this to be their favorite movie are people who are also very uncomfortable with that idea, identifying with that, is My Cousin Vinny. And you know what? My Cousin Vinny is actually a movie about a guy who, kind of manages to fake being a lawyer so successfully he gets away with it. And maybe that's part of it. But Better Call Saul, he is a lawyer, but he's not really a lawyer at all. And it's not, I wouldn't even call it, there's a lot of legal stuff in it, but it's not really a legal drama. So there's aspects of it I can relate to in terms of the plot. But in the end of the day, it's not about that. It's about this very flawed character going into this really tragic decline, and it's so good. It's so good. Anyway, I'm going to stop there. As you can see, you set me off there, Tokyo 503. Can't wait to see, of course, David Urey feature again. What do I think is going to happen to Kim? Man, Kim had what's her name again? I actually tweeted her directly. I thought she was so amazing. The girlfriend of Jimmy in the last season of Better Call Saul. I actually tweeted her out and just said, "Oh my God, how can she not be getting all the awards?" Like, this is what I'm talking about. The actors and actresses in this thing are just so good. And you know what? Like, I hope she doesn't die, but that would be the expectation. In a way, if they've got the balls to allow her to die, like in a really tragic way, but how could she die and him still be the character that he is in Better Call Saul? But there again, I mean, it's not going to be some happy ending. Obviously, it's got to be a tragic ending, whatever it is for her. And this is it. That's what this grabs you. You want to know what the hell happens, right? So, it's got me. That show has got me. I'm also, by the way, watching Pam and Tommy at the moment on Disney Plus, of all things. I mean, of all the things that I expected not to see on Disney Plus. I'm watching the Japan Geo version of that, and slight spoiler alert. Everything in Japan, the gentleman bits and the lady bits are all censored in everything in Japan. And I was the first time in Japan I have ever legally seen an uncensored male genitalia was in Pam and Tommy on Disney Plus. Disney Plus was the first legal uncensored porn I've ever seen in Japan. Another spoiler, and it was talking. I mean, Seth Rogen obviously had a lot of artistic license with it. I am finding very 90. The fact that 90s is now a nostalgia thing, I'm having trouble getting my head around, but it was freaking 30 years ago. So of course, I'm enjoying that right now. Not like the original tape, not something you'd recommend to your mum, but it's quite good. But yeah, there's a lot of things I'm looking forward to right now, but certainly Better Call Saul is just amazing. Oh, wow, okay, you set me off. I've got to catch up again. Definitely followed a whole flock of squirrels there. Dan H, with the increase of oil prices, will Japan finally reach 2% inflation? Well, they're trying not to. I was joking how releasing the oil reserves and so on, it's like they've been aiming for 2% inflation for all this time, and now it's going to happen. The government's panicking, trying to stop it. Was pointed out to me. One, I was being glib and flippant and throwing peanuts. And of course, they want good inflation. They don't want inflation where wages are still going down, but external resource prices are going up, causing an economic shock like the 1970s. They want inflation, virtuous cycle inflation, which this is definitely not. It would be if Japan was, of course, drilling its own oil, but it's not. Could be drilling its own, making its own nuclear power generated hydrogen, but it's not. So yeah, it could very well, it's hard to imagine it going up 2%, but we'll see. I mean, that's another thing where it's hard to tell what's going to happen. Do appreciate the comments as always, and remember, everybody, do what Dan H and Tokyo 503 just did. Just say my name. You don't even have to @mark Kiko Simon, although you can do that. It will flash orange, and I will pay attention to it. I will read the whole comment, and I will talk about whatever you want me to talk about. I'm just a wind-up bunny for this kind of thing. So yes, we've got Theodore Sharp. Great to see you, Theodore Sharp. I think I saw someone. Comments just jumped there. The Arnold Schwarzenegger video. Was there a mention of that? I did see that. That was actually. I mean, I must admit, I thought it's kind of funny at first. I don't know if that's exactly what you're talking about, Mr. Cordy Chat, but on the one hand, it's hard to take a Austrian bodybuilder, trying to be a politician seriously, but then you actually listen to what he says, and it's like, damn, there's a lot worse out there than him. Certainly, that was a great video that he did. Black Tengu, just in time. Hell, it's 20 minutes past, and I've just been jabbering. You're doing fine. DJ Sunny setup just on your laptop with OBS Studio and Fruity Loops, of course, that's what you use. And free Wi-Fi, or is it still uploading? Okay, very good. I'll go check that out. Cobras Tenchi, haven't watched Breaking Bad. Okay, forget everything I said about ATM machines and David Urey and enjoy it. Seriously, it's a great series. Although I'll tell you what, if you're starting out, I mean, actually, in a way, I suppose you should watch Breaking Bad first, because then you'd be experiencing Better Call Saul the way that everyone else is. But it is a prequel, and honestly, I like Better Call Saul better than Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad went on for too long, and I got kind of sick of Walter White, honestly. And I'm not sick of Saul Goodman at all. So, yeah, I don't know. For me, I don't know. What do other people think? Breaking Bad or or Better Call Saul? We have Fureto-san. Whoa, como vai? Long time no see. Our representative Brazilian J-Vlogger represent. Good to see you, man. Wow, long time no see. Great to have you here in the comments. Obrigado. Good to have you in here. We've got... who else? We've got... I think we're getting through everybody. Oh, it jumped ahead. I hate it when it updates all of a sudden. By the way, I did see a video the other day from the YouTube Creator Studio that they are going to thinking about new live streaming features, like being able to feature certain comments and have people join more easily and have it all built in. YouTube just lately seems to be really much slower at rolling out like big changes like that. And why not? It's a stable, well-working, successful product, so why mess it up with dramatic changes? But it does make it feel a bit like they're turning a bit like into, Microsoft and Office. Like, it's kind of just, they're just leaving it and trying to maintain it now rather than innovate. I mean, the trials seem great, but I very seldom see it actually roll out into significant things. I really hope they do. There's still a lot that they can do to improve the live streaming. And I hope to see those features roll out, including why does it jump in the comments like that so often? Yes, Kerberos Tenshi is the head of Yakuza. Hiko Simon is the head of Yakuza New Zealand branch. I wouldn't wish to be that, and I don't know. They've got the whole wool and sheep-related products rackets are definitely all wrapped up by the New Zealand Yakuza indeed. Theodore Sharp, I do not think that they will do that, but yeah. Aaron, indeed, I mean, seriously, well, maybe the censors just thought it's Disney, we don't have to check. Newsflash, modern Disney, it looks like you need to check now that they have the Star Channel shows. Although, yeah, I mean, it was kind of fun. I mean, if it had a mosaic, you wouldn't have been able to see it talk, so what can you do? And it was Tommy Lee. So anyway, I'm going to stop, but it did deserve its own title credit, seriously. One Johnson, I love Breaking Bad. The Japanese voice actors are awesome. The Saul spin-off didn't appeal until now. Maybe it's just me, but I really I like the fact that they just decided they were just going to take their time and build out the stories of all the obscure back characters, and in a way that almost like they had better stories than the main Breaking Bad thing. For me, and the fact that the Saul Goodman character is just like all over the place. So that's me. It's me. I love it. And there are so few series in America, all series in America, even the very best series in America, like Battlestar Galactica remake, like Lost. Everything goes through a amazing launch and then a surprising, still beats expectations, second season, third season, but they never think beyond the third season. And the writing, all of a sudden, all the writers go on to new projects. They don't want to do a fourth year on a show, and they bring in new writers and they get a new director. And the fourth season is always crap. And then the fifth season feels like filler because they've decided that since it's gone crap, they've got to make it 6 seasons where they're going to make it end. And even Breaking Bad went through that for me. Again, one thing I like about British TV is that when they make something good, it just finishes after like 1 season or 2 seasons or whatever. They don't try to draw it out for more money. And that's what happens too much with really great TV in America. Again, the fact that Better Call Saul is on its 5th or 6th season, and it hasn't had a drop. The writing, the whole 6 seasons was planned from the very beginning, and the writing has been solid. And instead of using it to have this explosive story that would burn out after 3 seasons, they've just filled it in and they've spread it out over 6 seasons and just done it really well. So anyway, sorry, I should be getting paid for this, shouldn't I? It's great. Anyway, that's it. I'm just going to see, are there any more names? If not, please do say hello. I do love seeing everybody in the comments. There are rabbits, there are squirrels, there is everything there, and I guess you want to hear what's actually going on. Ben Duncan, did you hear me raging about? No, I've been raving about Better Call Saul because Tokyo 503 asked me a quick question about that. I can't wait for that. But anyway, let's get into the topics. After all, it is half of the show is already gone now, and that was just the warm-up. No raging yet. Anger management. Yes, I'm channeling the anger into positive endorsements. We've got, in terms of the stories, by the way, we've got Tokyo Blackout, Family Value, Ordinances, Oso-Russia, which is, of course, the Japanese pun for Russia being terrifying. So let's get in what specifically we're talking about. First thing, just to start the week, the latest party political rankings. You can see them there. The LDP, top left, 38.4%, down 3%, but their closest rival, actually, you may think maybe that number 2, the Tachimin, the Constitutional Democratic Party. They can say a lot with those two characters, can't they? 5.9%. also down. But again, this is the LDP. Everyone hates their guts. Nobody likes them. But the number one opposition party is 5.9% against the government's 38.4%. So you might think that they're coming second, but they're not, because if you look at the lower right, you've got, of course, Japan's often most popular party, and actually they're up 4.5%. The Richard Pryor, Brewster's Millions party, the None of the Above party, we hate all of them, 35.5%. Again, I wonder if there are truthful polls in Russia, if they would have like a higher number for that. But there you go, 35.5%. Japanese just hate all politicians and just screw them all. You have to respect that, although of course it means as a result that the LDP just gets in. But it means people aren't overwhelmingly upset or angry at the LDP right now, but they really don't like them, and they really don't like the alternatives, because honestly, whenever the opposition open their mouths, they look like idiots. Highlights of this week: I mean, the Constitutional Democrats haven't done anything, of course. The Komeito, which is in third place there, the pink one, they're actually allied with the LDP. And their whole thing is, basically to pretend to not be a religion, and to funnel as much money from the government to their constituents as possible. So, they don't serve any purpose other than just to lobby for cabinet seats. The Osaka is Awesome Party, 4.5% there. Again, they're kind of a central-right. They're not. All the other opposition parties are left-wing parties, but Ishin is kind of and it's kind of funny because the former head of the Socialist Party and in the Democrat Party, who wants to torpedo the idea of cooperating with the Osaka's Awesome party, second from the bottom, 4.5% there. They're basically what are they doing lately? They're just basically always just sort of doing nationalist populist stuff. They would be where Trump would come from, and kind of was as the mayor of Osaka, except never got quite that successful. On the top right hand side, you've got the Japanese Communist Party. Ain't no party like a Communist Party. Who one of the senior members today actually tweeted that how everybody's like being critical of Russia right now, but they do this without ever thinking about how terrible we were during the war. Hard to tell where they're getting at with that. Are they going for the we should be more guilty and restrained, or we shouldn't say bad things about Russia? Which is funny because, Russia's nothing like communist anymore, but who knows what they were thinking. But that's the party political rankings this week. Quint Ranked in the US. The rerun market is very important, so programs have to last long enough to get into syndication. I definitely get it, Quinn Ranked. And I know that the economics are huge over there in Seinfeld, 12 seasons or whatever it was. I do get that, but there again, just as a consumer, it makes me appreciate more and more when you get good writing that survives. I appreciate the writers and the acting, and I don't like it when you can tell the studio or a producer is just going straight for the cheapest, easiest, direct path to money. That can be satisfying, but it's really, I get excited about something like Better Call Saul, where they have the confidence that they can, and it's what Netflix is allowing as well, that they're happy to, some of the parodies about Netflix about how they're just giving too much money away to everybody, but the fact that they're willing to let people write good stuff and not have studios and advertisers determine so much of the content and stuff, it's resulting in better stuff getting made. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of crap also being made, but I think there are some gems coming out of all of it, so I am appreciative. Next story this week that I got into an internet fight over, so that was fun. I misread this. So, I flip through my feeds every morning. Most mornings, it depends on how busy I am with work. Some days they build up and I catch up. But basically, I've got a bunch of folders. I've got the stuff I'm most likely to retweet that I call All Stars, and I've got English news about Japan, which is mostly Nikkei stuff and some other stuff. I've got Japanese language stuff. I've got all my favorite Japanese feeds. I've got geekiness. I've got tech and space news feeds. And I also go through Twitter and Mainichi Shimbun. And as I'm going through, basically every day I've got like 200 news stories just pop up in my feed. If something looks interesting, I'll have a quick read of it. And if I think it's worth sharing or it might be interesting to people who follow me, I'll usually tweet it. And if it's in Japanese, I'll just do a quick summary. of oh, this looks interesting. This is like this title. 子供を産むべきだと価値観を押し付け、岡山の家庭教育支援条例条例案物議. Well, anyway, there's a debate over a city ordinance from Okayama that's pushing the value upon people that people should have children. And I must admit, I read the headline. I was scanning through quickly. I'd just been talking last week about how the problem with women being underrepresented in local governments and central government in Japan results in bad, crappy laws being made that are sort of tone deaf towards the needs of actual women constituents. And I thought, oh, this meets the theme. But I was rushing through, so I just basically said, oh, Okayama's passing an ordinance that says women should have kids. Which isn't exactly what it was about. It was actually about home education. It was an ordinance specifying the role of parents in ensuring that kids have education, basically, sort of intended to help with family life for constituents in Okayama. However, 20,000 people submitted like protests to the LDP in Okayama, saying that this is a case of the LDP legislating under the presumption that, of traditional family values where everyone's supposed to have kids and women are supposed to be housemakers and so on. And this whole perspective and the fact that they were legislating around this, and when basically it's true that the city council that was legislating this is just a bunch of old men, and they want to go back to the good old days. And it was basically these values were the gist of what were being legislated, and it was causing a blowback, and that is the news story. Now, I tweeted that wrong. I didn't actually go into the detail of what the ordinance was about, that this was just directives, basically for the idea of how education should take place and the role of the parents and probably in most cases the mother. But yeah, the point is that the story was about the blowback and the reaction to the fact that there are local governments in Japan that are legislating based on these sort of views, which really are not taking into account the modern needs of women, which are not necessarily always to have babies and, make sandwiches for their husbands, which are the kind of values which appear to be reflected in these sorts of laws. And so it does, I was kind of wrong, but I was kind of right. But and a lot of people seem to agree, and they were sharing it as well. And I shared it with the Japanese and the English. But yeah, one person did call out that I wasn't actually translating it exactly correctly. I translated it with like 4 words in my defense because I was trying to cram in the Japanese and the fact it was related to this other story, but it was still wrong, and I did a mea culpa on that. I didn't translate it exactly directly, but it did tie into the point that I was making, that this is where Japan, being 166 out of 189 countries in terms of representation of women among legislators, results in crappy laws being made that results in people getting pissed off about those crappy laws, and that's exactly what's happening here. So yeah, although they weren't actually legislating that women have to have babies. That was going too far, and that's what I said. So sorry about that, and many thanks to Matt Thomas, I think. There was somebody who called me out, and I felt like getting into an internet fight, and I was just about to go, screw you, man, I'm right. And then I realized I was wrong, and that happens a lot, especially I was going fast. It was early in the morning. There was a flock of seagulls. What can I say? Well, but I was kind of right, so I'll but I was wrong, but I was kind of right. So that's what happened with that one. It was still kind of, just symptomatic of the overall thing that I was talking about. Quint Rankid, Russia might not be communist, but you've seen some video of Russian vehicles with red hammer and sickle flags. Yeah, but I don't think they were actually, having the hammer and sickle wasn't so much that they believed that they should have a committee of equal representation of all groups, splitting property, and so on, equally among all the populace. I don't think they were doing that out of an ideal of utopian socialism. They were doing that more out of a nostalgia for the authoritarianism that the Soviet Union became a long time before the pretense of socialism ended in Russia. But yes, certainly, but no question. Wanting to be back in the USSR, I don't know, maybe they're like big Beatles fans, who knows, but clearly that seems to be part of it, this sort of weird nostalgia. I mean, look, things have obviously been kind of crappy in Russia for a while, but they're crappy. I mean, Putin made them crappy, and yet now he wants to go back to make things better. He could have done that without, if he had just not stolen everybody's money in the first place, right? So yeah, we'll get into Ukraine in a moment, but yes, indeed. Wing Star, great to see you, Wing Star. As always, great to have you here in the comments. Sorry that Dan H retracted a comment. I'm sorry, it's visible here. That's what you get when I capture live chat. Internet fighting, woohoo, indeed, yes. Toot toot, internet fighting, especially when I'm wrong. And the thing is, I'm always so confident that I'm right, and then I realize, oh, I'm wrong. Oh no. Stuff happens. It's, and I do not take it personally. And I see other people sometimes people take it personally. Sometimes people are just looking for an internet fight. And when I have the time to do that, that's great. But I don't. By the way, I had a call from Give Me a Break Man today. First time I've talked with him in a while, and he said that someone he talk about someone who will get into internet fights. Victor definitely will do that. And certainly, if I do get into internet fights, I'll get into internet fights over facts and history and stuff like that, and usually be wrong. But at least on that, it's a fight like it's like K1. There's going to be pretty much a clear knockout, or there's going to be some decisive end. There's never going to be a points decision. Victor likes to go into fights about people's feelings. And when someone says that they felt like they were being discriminated against, and he'll say, "Oh, it's all in your head." And he said someone called up and I said that to someone because I think they're just seeing the whole world wrong. And they responded back that I was like invalidating their feelings. And I was like, yeah, dude, you probably were. At the end of the day, but when you're talking about perspectives, people are, people's perspective is their reality. So you can't just say, and when they feel that way, they're going to see the whole world that way. And they're going to say that the whole world is that way. And, even if you see the world differently and you firmly believe it's different, you're never going to convince someone who doesn't see it that way. But, yeah. So I'm never going to say to someone that your feelings are wrong. I mean, even if I think that they are, I won't say that. Much respect to Victor for saying it and for sharing what he thinks as well. And, I think people actually like about Victor the fact that he's willing to go that far. I just don't have the time or interest. I'm just happy to go and pick it, in 1872, where there are 3 or 4, assassins of a Dutch clogmaker. And, I'm happy to be black or white, right and wrong. That's just me. Hey, Eddie, it seems like all those old politicians are still getting many votes. Aren't there more women and younger people in the opposition parties? Yes and no. Well, one, not many people turn out to vote in these things. And the other thing is that not many people want to run. The fact is, most of these politicians are often retirees. They're often people who know or are already connected to the people who were there before. They're often, particularly the more local you get in terms of city councils, there are a lot of seats that are not contested. For example, a city, Saitama, something like 300,000 or 400,000 population north of Tokyo, had a mayoral election 2 weeks ago, and only 2 people ran for it. Only 2 people even registered to run for it. One of them was the incumbent LDP nominated, 65-year-old, crusty old, old school guy. And the only person who ran against him was someone who legally changed his name to Super Crazy Boy. Was it Super Crazy Kung, who was like a former nightclub host who just made so much money sleeping with women that he just decided he wanted to run for parliament somewhere. And after he failed at the national elections, he's just going through smaller and smaller cities until he can be in charge of someplace. And he didn't win. That was the only competition, and there wasn't a woman in the race. So, women are like, I don't want to go anywhere near any of that stuff, and there's no real precedent or sort of way in for that. So, no, it's a real problem. And people look at it and just think, I'm going to support the Richard Pryor, none of the above party, as you can see there, just when they're presented with choices like that. So that's what you end up with. But yes, younger generation of voters not showing up. I mean, they are, but, again, in a way, it's kind of amazing in America that you can fill stadiums with people getting excited, cheering for, 80-something-year-old dudes fighting. Like in Japan, people just don't get that excited for that. And they make up the majority of the population here. So the apathy is definitely all the way through the population. Quint Ranked. Nostalgia for the old authoritarian regime. That explains the denazification. No question. I think from the right, well, again, hot takes, but I think from the Russian perspective, sure, the fact that they think that they're restoring Soviet glory, fighting the Nazis again. And besides the fact that, look, it's not entirely made up. I mean, Russia has infinitely more Nazis than Ukraine does, like real, like modern neo-Nazi skinheads. But, the Azov battalion and right sector and those guys, they are funded by the government, and they are full of, like you get everywhere in Eastern Europe. You get poor white people who look for pride in race and that kind of thing. Doesn't excuse it. But it's a common phenomenon that you just get a bunch of scumbags. The narrative that they're perfect and clean and angels is wrong on both sides. But the point is, it didn't give Russia any kind of right. The fact that there are skinheads in Ukraine, that becomes a pretext for invading. You can invade New Zealand with that pretext. There are probably as many skinheads in New Zealand as there are in Ukraine. Not very many, So it still is BS, but sure. Again, big countries have a way of making up justifications for doing what they want to do, even when there's no good reason for it. And Russia's taking their turn, unfortunately. Victor does like online fights. Another comment from Dan H. That's because you used the wrong kanji for TV show. Giri Haji. Oh, is that right? Well, you can mistype those things. That's okay. We all do that. I definitely mistype all the time. I am going to jump back. By the way, good to see Jay's M in the comments. Give me a fight, man. PB. My favorite give me a fight, man thing was the time that Victor had oh God. Yeah, the action camera. The black. Oh God, I've forgotten the name of it. But the sports camera everyone uses. He saw somebody in Nagoya, as happens commonly in downtown Nagoya. He saw some guy dressed up like a host basically kicking a woman who looked like a hostess, like basically kind of looked like that kind of a couple early in the morning after a big night and drunk, and sort of just a scumbag. And he was like kicking his girlfriend, and he decided to rush in to protect her, to save her from getting kicked by this guy. Again, look, you have to love Victor for doing this, but the fact he started charging, and then he stopped, and then he turned on his action camera, attached it, and then he ran in and grabbed the guy and held him. And as he held the guy, saying stop hitting her, the girl jumped on Victor's back and started hitting Victor like, you leave my boyfriend alone. That sums up the difference between me and Victor, right? I would not put myself in that situation ever, and Victor would do it 10 times out of 10. And that's why if I'm ever in a burning building, I would want Victor to be outside and not me. Because he would be the one running in there to save the day, and that's what's cool about him. Quint Rankid, somehow the Azov Brigade is answering to Zelensky. Well, they're all militia groups which are all sort of integrated, but yeah, please try to understand my feelings of confusion and validate my feelings. I can't. It's a war, but in the end of the day, when you have Russian tanks coming into a city, honestly, I don't think you hesitate to hand someone a machine gun and some grenades out of a sense of ideological difference. If they're all going to point guns in the same direction, you'd work with the skinheads. And they've been doing this, by the way, since, of course, the other conflicts. And again, this is being used as a pretext by Russia. It doesn't justify anything like what's happening in Mariupol. And remember, the Azov Battalion is based in Mariupol. And no question that what's happening there is directly because of this. But it's like a freaking bikie gang. It's like freaking Hell's Angels is in a city, so they decide to flatten the whole city and do all the other horrible things that are happening there. So no, I'm not going to pretend that Ukraine is 100% clean. But at the same time, even the worst narrative even if you accept half of what Russia says, or think it's based on kernels of truth, which sure there's stuff there, but it doesn't start to justify what Russia's doing. So there's your emotional validation. GoPro. What was I was thinking of the GoPro Black. I'm losing my marbles. Anyway, exactly. Wingstar knows what I was talking about. Victor intervening to save the girl. Yes, and she attacked him. Again, as sort of inevitably happens in these kind of situations. It's like he charged into a Sopranos movie scene or something. I don't know, but that's just some people just live different lives. I do need to do a Victor with video soon, and we were talking about that earlier today, and that is true, and I will do that, Aaron. But we both have busier lives now, but we should totally do that. Special episode indeed. Or even just a normal episode of 2.5 Voyages would be good. In fact, maybe I'll do it as a substitute for this, because I think doing a live stream 2 nights in a week is too much for me. I got exhausted from it. But you know what? I could do it instead of a Tokyo Tonight sometime. You'd all get to enjoy that instead. It'd be a lot of fun. The next story. We had a big earthquake. I think it was on Tuesday. Yeah, magnitude 7.3. Remembering that magnitude just sucks and is meaningless. It's where everybody uses for measuring earthquakes. But the reason for that is that most places, like a whole city, most cities around the world only will have one seismic measuring device. And what those will do is those will tell you, literally, it's like measuring a rainstorm, like a weather system, by the total volume of rain that falls as opposed to how much rain falls where. Japan actually has shaking detection ground accelerometers like all over the place, so they can measure exactly how much stuff shakes, all over the country, and they can tell you exactly how much it shook in one city as opposed to a different city. Whereas everywhere else around the world, you'll just get one of those maps where you'll get the earthquake was centered here and it was 7.3 and it was very big. And whenever I read the news about earthquakes in New Zealand, it's always like, my cat was very confused and fell off the counter and stuff like that. It's all in Japan. They have numbers, and in Tokyo, this was a Shindo 4, close to a lower 5, and that's where earthquakes are scary. It went on for a long time. The bigger the magnitude, the longer the quake will go on. But of course, Tokyo, we were like 500 kilometers away from it. But it was still big enough that the doors were clattering. I was worried that the door was going to get stuck. So, the next door neighbor propped open all of the doors. I propped open my doors. I was working at the time. It was 11:30 at night, but I was working late at night. And what happened that was very unusual was even during the Great East Japan earthquake, the power stayed on. 24 years. In Australia, there's a stiff breeze, a tree will fall over, and you'll get a blackout, during squalls or whatever. It happens all the time. Happens all the time in New Zealand as well that you'll get blackouts. Every house keeps candles for when there's blackouts. Tokyo, you just never get blackouts. There were like deliberate blackouts when there was energy rationing for a time after the Great East Japan earthquake, but there was nothing during an earthquake. But this was a big earthquake. Went on for a long time, very noisy, very scary, changing gears. Big earthquakes have another tendency, whereas a normal tremor will normally be like just like on a curve. Big quakes, they go for a long time and they like shift gears. It'll be like a like they went through like 3 switches. In fact, it almost finished, and then there were like 2 quakes like mashed together. It was really weird. But in the middle of the second one, which was quite big, all of a sudden, all the power went out. And first I thought it was like the breaker had fallen or something. But I look out the window and everything is dark. And then I go out and check out, to see if the other apartments have their lights on. And, they've got their doors open as well. Super unusual. 2 million homes lost their power, basically because the Tokyo receives its power from Tohoku, which is where they had the biggest sort of earthquake. And the generators that were close to Tokyo were still sending normal electricity, but the ones from Tohoku all of a sudden were not. And that caused the grid to just lose balance. And so all the safety breakers just sort of flipped and they turned off all the power. In the end of the day, the picture was you could see these black areas are the areas that were okay. In Shinjuku, a lot of central Tokyo areas were actually still okay. And people were tweeting that they still had power. But where I was, it was all blacked out. So that was like big. And again, there was a small tsunami, but no damage. But the Shinkansen, the bullet train, was derailed. Again, a couple of light injuries from that. Still remarkable how well the systems work, that they had automatic braking and so on happening. But the highways had a huge 100-meter crack, which was fixed by the next morning. Still remarkably resilient, but a really big earthquake. So yeah, that was like a once in 10 years kind of a quake for Tokyo, and we know we're going to get a big one someday. They're just going to come down. Like that was just further down the line, further south than the last one, but that was a big thing that happened this week. Yeah, Vince back. Good to see you there in the chat. What do I do for work? Well, I don't share personal information. I talk about previous jobs. I guess I can share that I work inside a Japanese company. I mean, and I work in the field of law. My background is law and IT, but basically, I guess I could say I do law in-house at companies now, and I find that fun. That's what I do. Yeah, I'm a little bit careful with how much I share just on this show, but but I've been in Japan 24 years. I've been an IT engineer. I've been a lawyer at a law firm, and now I'm in-house lawyer, and that's what I do. Kerberos Tenshi, oh, that's right. We've seen that one before. December Clouds, another name I don't recognize. Good to see. Yeah, do people have generators in Japan just in case the power goes out? Definitely not in Tokyo because the power never goes out. It's quite unusual. Some people do. Actually, you know what? a lot of people do have emergency kits where they'll have small, they will have small battery generators and stuff like that. In terms of like gas or diesel generators like you'd have in New Zealand, no one has those. But you do get the big sort of storage batteries with USBs and radios and stuff like that. You get earthquake kits which will have large batteries and stuff like that. So, December Clouds, good to see you there in the chat. Sainted Sir, good to see you. And Eric Bailey as well, good to have you indeed. The trick with the bottle which you put on, there's a trick as well where you can have the bottle on top of a mobile phone. It turns it into like a massive light, a lamp, and that was something a lot of people were recommending in the Blackout as well on Twitter. So that was a thing. Next topic is I got my third shot this week. I got it in the right arm. My other ones I got in the left arm, but I sleep on the left, and now I realized I couldn't sleep on my arm because it was so sore, and that really messed me up. So I got it in the right arm. It's only like half the dose. I didn't realize that till actually after I got the shot. So it's I don't know. This time I heard a lot of people actually found that the third shot was the worst. Where they they actually had higher fever and were knocked out for a longer time. So I was worried about this one, but to me it was the lightest one. You do hear that people who have actually been exposed to real coronavirus or whatever, they feel it worse when you get this. So possibly it's just I haven't been in contact with it, which would be kind of remarkable. Although I've been working from home most of this time, so perhaps it was that. But I was feeling a bit crappy yesterday. Slight headache, not even a real fever, like 36.9 degrees. Just feeling a bit crappy and just sleeping a little bit longer than usual. But today I'm back to normal, so I'm hoping I can get back into running pretty soon anyway. Yes, the GIF is not moving, but of course I was just thinking when I get boosted, I just can't, I was a kid in the 1980s, so of course I had to think of Kit, the car from Knight Rider, going through turbo boost and jumping through something. So that's the GIF that I used for that, but that was pretty good. Something else that was remarkable, Kono Taro, who just has a remarkably interesting English Twitter account, he shared something, and I'm just like, this guy is trying to be taken seriously as the next Prime Minister of Japan. He's just typing this sort of, random stuff all the time. Like, dude, get it together. Well, what is this thing? If you have an iPhone, type Zoku Zoku, you get this. I'm like, oh, sure, right, okay, let me try that. And it works, and I did it, and I was like, whoa. And then everybody else started retweeting it, and everyone's like, it became a big thing. Like, oh, you can do this thing, and Kono Taro promoting it showed that. I mean, again, the fact that they put this guy in charge of PR for the LDP, to sort of as punishment for losing the LDP leadership election, I find him the only entertaining politician in Japan, which probably isn't saying very much, but honestly, as you can see from the earlier ratings, we're desperately starved for entertainment. So yeah, that's something that I found. Lots of peanuts. Thank you for throwing peanuts, and thank you for likes. Indeed, do remember, if you are enjoying this show, I do appreciate it. Pretty much likes are all I do it for, so please do definitely send a like if you are enjoying the show. Continuing on, Unseen Japan put up a ranking that was taken actually ranked with data of Japan's most livable cities, and they did a sort of an extraction, not of the top cities per se. Some of them are the top cities, but more or less just sort of notable mentions. And they talk about factors that they used for weighting. You can actually see the full table down the bottom, and I'll see if I can show the table without giving away the rankings. So you can see the city at a stability ranking, comfort ranking, fun ranking, and for immigrants ranking. So from that perspective, the number one city in Japan is Kanazawa in Ishikawa Prefecture. Now, I've heard good things about the Sea of Japan side, about it being lovely, good lifestyle, relatively accessible to big cities, whereas good balance of nature and so on, great lifestyle. That said, there was a Twitter account saying, like, come to Ishikawa Tours, or some sort of Ishikawa tourism promotion channel that came and said that Kanazawa is crap and nobody would ever recommend the place. And I'm like, are you just trying to keep it to yourself? He's like, no, it's horrible. But Kanazawa is the capital of Ishikawa Prefecture, so I don't know why an Ishikawa tourism YouTube channel is ripping so hard on their capital. I don't know, maybe people in Ishikawa just hate Kanazawa. I don't get it, but they came out number one on the ranking. Partly probably because the author actually used to live there. Matsumoto, again, I don't entirely get it, but up in the mountains, a lot of mountain cities here. Toyama, I know people who lived in Toyama, and again, it gets deep, deep snow in winter, but it's by the sea. You can surf there during summer. It's got a good size. It's got everything that you sort of need, whereas it's right in the middle of nature and so on. So Toyama I get more than others. In fact, Toyama in my first job in Japan as a system engineer was kind of famous. There was a project in Toyama, and it was famous that people would get assigned to this project for a year, and when it was time to come back to Tokyo and go to the next project, people would just like quit and say, no, I'm staying. It was like nobody came back from Toyama, and everyone would talk about just how great the lifestyle was there, the hiking, the nature, the city itself. So yeah, I believe Toyama. Kobe is kind of the Yokohama of Osaka. That said, I think the Yokohama of Yokohama is probably better, but it is relatively international, and it's a good size. It's a city that's got everything. That's right beside Osaka, but it's not Osaka. It's a bit cleaner. It's a bit richer. So I've heard good things about Kobe, so I kind of get it. I mean, in spite of the earthquake and everything, it recovered really well, and it is a well-to-do part of Japan, so I kind of get it. Hiroshima, again, I think a lot of people still associate Hiroshima with World War II. Of course, it's a beautiful city. It's not too big, and it's got great nature and everything around it. Indeed, a lot to recommend. I can't say myself that I could see myself living in Hiroshima, but there you go. Nagano Prefecture, Karuizawa. There are some places in Nagano Prefecture that are famous as like escapes for people to buy their second homes from Tokyo. I don't know that I'd want to actually live in Nagano City at all, but Nagano itself I could sort of see as a place to get away. Again, a strong mountain bias here. I would really like to live somewhere by the sea where I could go surfing in summer, and I don't see too many ocean-based sort of destinations. Tokyo, probably out of this list, is the best for surfing, actually. Tokyo has awesome surfing. It has two coasts within like an hour of the city, both going west and going east and going south. So Tokyo definitely gets a lot of things there. Kyoto, I wouldn't want to live in. I mean, Kyoto is lovely, and I know that people rave about it, but the beautiful parts are like intersped with most of the city being overtaken, just being really sort of ugly. And I don't know, I hear it's kind of difficult for Japanese to sort of get on living there, so that's surprising. Akita, super cold, northern Japan. Again, kind of surprising. Nagoya, I can't believe that Nagoya is number 10. I told you earlier about Victor, intervening to stop, to stop a hostess being beaten by her host boyfriend and being attacked and so on. But that's kind of my perfect image of Nagoya. If that's what you're into, go there. It's Toyota town. You can't really walk anywhere. You need a car. Everything's too spread apart. I'm surprised that, for example, Sapporo, which has a wonderful reputation as a city, comes above Nagoya. Nagoya is bigger, of course, but Sapporo is a place I would love to go to. I think Fukuoka actually came above that, and Fukuoka is another great city. I'm shocked that Yokohama, which ranks within Tokyo as the most popular part within the greater Tokyo area to live, would come so far down the list. Osaka, 36, I kind of believe has a bit of a grungy reputation, so I don't know. How does this resonate for people? Here's the top 25. It's a good list. But certainly Fukuoka, 14, Shizuoka, Hamamatsu, those are like beach towns. Those are places you can go surfing, so that kind of makes some more sense. You know what? Shizuoka coming out as a D for immigrants just feels off. There's a lot of Brazilians down there. Those are relatively multicultural compared to other places. It still feels arbitrary to me. But yeah, Hachioji. I used to live in Hachioji. Hachioji's nice, but it's just, you might as well put Saitama and Chiba on the list if you're going to have Hachioji on there. It's just a bed town, an hour and a half out of Tokyo, with a lot of bosozoku and boy races, but that's fine. Kitakyushu makes it to 24. Wow. Again, I've been to Kitakyushu. It's love Space World and everything, but Kitakyushu is like the hand grenade gangster attack capital of Japan. I have no idea. It also has a massive Korean community, so these scores feel off to me. But it's an industrial, ugly, gangster-ridden, unsafe crime city. It's the city that the Americans intended to nuke instead of Nagasaki, but it was cloudy, so they went to Nagasaki instead. Yeah. I'm not sure I agree with this list. But anyway, good thoughts anyway for people who are in Japan. Softy Papa, whoa! Great to have Softy Papa in here. I'm a fan. Softy Papa, I'm a fan of your channel and your musings and so on Facebook. I kind of lurk, but I do enjoy and respect greatly what you've been doing with your life and with the many things with your book and so on. So great to have you in the chat. Everybody should subscribe to Softy Papa. He's got a great channel. More stuff. Wow, as always, we are up on time, and I have wow, way too many stories. Let's speed it up. Yeah, Japan, this morning, the government took a look at sanctions against Russia, and they were like, okay, energy, yes, oil, yes, banking, finance, yes, we'll cut all of that. Salmon and crab. Oh, do we have to stop the salmon and crab? It tastes so good. I mean, all of that Russian, I mean, seriously, we can still support Ukraine, but enjoy the crab, right? Do we have to give up the crab? Yeah, I think that's going to be too much. Let's keep the crab and the salmon. That's what the Japanese government decided. They decided that the effect of banning Russian salmon and crab would be too much on the Japanese people. So for everything else that they're supposedly banning, they've reversed course and decided to let in Russian crab and salmon after all. I didn't even know that Russian salmon was a thing. I assume it's all like Norwegian or something, but no, apparently. Well, there again, if it comes from north of Japan, I guess it would come from the Sea of Okhotsk or whatever. Sea of Okhotsk. Yeah, they just decided that, human rights and world peace and, war crimes and international stability are one thing, but delicious crab, what do you do? What do you do? Too tough. They just decided to pass. They're just going to keep taking the crab. They'll respect human rights, but with the crab, please. Meanwhile, Russia showing that just in case Japan ever asks for more than just crab, they put a couple of ships with trucks on them just to show how tough they are to Japan. I think we're getting a pretty good image at the moment. I'm pretty sure everyone's studying how the Russian military is doing in Ukraine right now. And in a way, I mean, again, part of me thinks as well, the idea of NATO not getting involved and the US not getting involved in Ukraine, partly because they don't want World War III to trigger nukes and all that sort of thing. But frankly, it's also the fact that they're giving them a whole bunch of weapons and clearly a lot of intelligence and assistance for fighting Russia. They're getting a really good chance to study Russia and learn a lot about what their strengths and weaknesses are. And honestly, parading a couple of, ferries with trucks on them as a way of trying to intimidate Japan and make Japan think that, I mean, Japan is not going to invade those islands ever. I mean, they're going to keep putting them on the NHK weather forecast. Yeah, I know what the weather's like in the southern Kuril Islands every day. But that's like as far as it's ever going to go. Japan's never going to invade those islands back. But that said, Russia still thrives. Their internal legitimacy comes off the fear and paranoia that everyone's out to get them. So, yeah, just like the, I think the tweet I did on this is basically like the drunken belligerent, one arm chopped off guard of the bridge sort of shouting, "Come at me, bro." Japan's not even interested. You don't have to like parade the ship with the rusty trucks on it to show how tough you are, Russia. It's fine. Just keep sending crab. We're all good. Is pretty much Japan's reaction, but there we go. Jumping in a little bit, the Japanese are apparently worried again. The main worry in Japan about the Ukraine thing is actually that China might do the same kind of thing with Taiwan, that they might do another, you don't get to be a country anymore. You were never a country in the first place, a bit like what Russia is doing with Ukraine. Interesting for China, you can see it the other way around, of course. Russia is promoting secession of half of Ukraine to join Russia, which, from their narrative that the US is promoting independence and secession of Taiwan, which of course it isn't. Taiwan already has never been part of communist China. But from the Chinese narrative perspective, in a way, endorsing a large country coming in and helping a part of a country that doesn't want to be part of the rest of the country secede by force is very much how the Chinese perceive what the Americans want to do with Taiwan. So you can see the Americans are afraid that the Chinese might act like Russia on Taiwan, and the Chinese are afraid that the Americans might act like Russia on Taiwan, and that puts China in a little bit of a spot with not wanting to endorse too much what Russia's doing there at the moment in Ukraine. But from a Japan perspective, certainly the idea that these big might is right authoritarians that are frankly fascist states, I mean, you can't they're not even pretending to be socialist anymore. These are fascist states doing what fascists do, settling everything by power and might. and trying to settle these sort of feelings that this country and the people in it somehow belong to them like possessions, and they can just take them. And again, there's a fear that China might take a cue that it's a good way to behave this way, which is also why it's important from an Asian perspective to make sure that a toll is taken from Russia, just for the fact that you don't want other countries to get ideas that they can get away with doing the same thing. But yeah, 90% of Japanese, it seems, 9 in 10 Japanese are worried that China's going to take a cue that this is the right way to handle the Taiwan issue. And maybe this is, again, why it's good that Russia's experiencing so much pain, trying to pretend that Ukraine doesn't or shouldn't exist, So again, it's, in a way, it's kind of painful in the sense that that America could probably more directly help and stop the conflict right away. But in a way, they're getting a chance to study the Russians and in a way undermine and punish them more and try out a bunch of techniques for fighting them. And the result is a lot more, the war goes on longer, which means more Ukrainians die, of course, and more suffering happens there. But it also means the Russians are going to be put through a lot more suffering. And I get the feeling that's part of the objective from the US perspective and from the NATO perspective. And, again, the Russians just have to figure out a way to get the hell out of there. And the fact that, again, I don't know if this is true, but the story that I heard today, that they're actually now forcibly removing civilians from Mariupol, and they're actually putting them through filtration camps and shipping them out to the Far East. I mean, that's literally what Russia did to ethnically cleanse ethnic Germans from Ukraine and Western Russia after World War II. That was what Stalin did, basically for internal genocides and whatnot. It's actually what he did with the Japanese people on those southern Kuril Islands. And if that's really what's happening, if they're really forcibly deporting, Ukrainians from Mariupol into gulags, I mean, I hope that's actually not true, and it's not verified yet. But it's what the mayor of Mariupol was saying and was getting broadcast today. More freaky footage of the power outage just happening all of a sudden in Tokyo, just such a rare thing. An awesome story, which I just love. The most important area in the world in for the next 100 years, while the focus has been so much on Asia, in the last 50 years, right now, the fastest growing economies in the world and the fastest growing populations in the world are all in Africa. And the fact that IT companies are just figuring out that, they should be hooking up Africa with internet, like high-speed internet, because that's where all the people that they're going to be hiring to be building the next generation of IT and the whole sort of, online service economy, the people who are going to do it, who are going to be looking and doing the services that will be looking after, the aging, wealthy people in other countries. All of that labor is going to come out of Africa, and Africa is going to be the next Asia. And so just the fact that they're just starting now to hook up, now there's like a race between a bunch of internet companies, including Google, but Facebook and others, Microsoft as well, to hook up all these high-speed cables up to Africa. It's really, really exciting. And again, I'm really excited to see the human potential of Africa actually finally, after all the crap that they've been through, being able to see that get released is just super cool to me. Just the fact that there are still, the internet online world is still, there are certain places that are connected and that you see online and places that you don't. But you're going to see a lot more people from countries that are now considered third world and are less well connected are going to become like the ones that dominate the world within our lifetimes. And I'm excited by that. I'm excited by thinking that every problem we have now that has 5 people working on a solution for it is going to have 20 people working for a solution on it, and the chances that, that 1 in 20 smartest person is probably going to be from one of those third world countries, and they're going to be coming through, and we're going to be getting better solutions for everything. That's just awesome, for everything that we want to do, for, energy, for space travel, for, sustainability. So anyway, I'm super excited about that. Japanese government's going to be giving $40,000 subsidies, or up to $40,000 subsidies for getting EV charging infrastructure into buildings. So again, like most things, Japan not first to the line on things like EV charging, infrastructure for battery-powered cars, but they've got a way of going a little bit late, but doing it really, really well. And I get the sense maybe that's what's going to happen. And that's it. That's right. I've got a little tweet there about my booster shop, but that's it. Final run through the comments. Let's just go back here. I see that some comments from Dan H, which I always appreciate. So let's go in here. Atomic Tom, great to see you, by the way. Dan H, have I traveled to Ryukyu Shoto and are any of the islands livable? If you're saying Ryukyu Shelter, don't you mean the Okinawan Islands? I'm sorry, maybe I misread that. Um, you mean the outer islands? I don't know. You lived in Beppu APU during 2018, and you don't find it to be very livable. I kind of felt it kind of felt like a beach town in UK. I know of people that moved down to the main island of Okinawa, which has a large population. Although it's funny. There have been a lot of shows in Japan talking about the development issues where Okinawa just lags so far behind the rest of Japan and why that is. And some put it down partly to the culture down there, as well as the economy, as well as the fact it reverted to Japan so late. So I don't know. It seems logical that Okinawa should be like the Hawaii of Japan, where rich, retirees go down there to, with causing artificial inflation and cost of living, and it becomes like this retirement resort. But Japanese like to retire in their hometowns. They don't like to go to some place with a great climate where everyone lives to be 120 years old for some reason. So it seems to me a great place to retire, and it seems to me there should be a whole economy around that, but for whatever reason there's not. I don't really understand why. It's not as well connected obviously as the rest of Japan, but yeah, it should be more livable than it perhaps is. I don't know. Kerberos Tenchi was looking at land prices in Ibaraki close to Tokyo, much cheaper than land prices even in the outer Tokyo area. Yes, it's Ibaraki, but depending, again, if your life involves going into Tokyo, those commutes will be pretty grinding, pretty fast, and they don't have high-speed rail out there. But for me, I used to go surfing in Owarai and Kashima, places in southern Ibaraki. And yeah, a little bit rural. Ibaraki, I think, ranks bottom of Japan in terms of beautiful prefectures, which is a bit harsh. There's actually mountains and ocean and good food and everything like that. It seems to get a little bit of a hard time, but it is a lovely place. So that said, would I want to live there? It's, again, the sort of place I'd love to have like a beach house or maybe retire somehow, but I don't consider it a place that I'd want to go and work. But that's just me. Aaron, thank you for posting the Softy Papa link. He's got a great channel. We've got Dan H. I could always vote for the Happy Science Party since they would invade those islands. That is certainly an option, indeed. Hey Eddie, so far you've seen many Russian trucks that had to be moved with the help of other vehicles. Well, I think that's how, in Putin Russia, you move trucks. I think that's how that works. I will, some chat there that I am not privy to, I don't understand, so I'm going to skip over that. Dan H, the USA are doing the same in Yemen with aiding Saudi as a trial run for future war against Iran. Yes, indeed. Yeah, I mean, you talk about just the fact that the US is now going to China and even Venezuela and Saudi Arabia for help on offsetting the oil stuff from Russia. When, you think about the only countries in the world arguably doing worse. You've got 3 million Uyghurs in concentration camps and basically an ethnic genocide happening domestically in China that everyone's ignoring and has given up even trying to draw attention to. You've got Saudi Arabia engaging in one of the ugliest wars, again, wars of pure aggression in the world, in Yemen. Basically, intervening in a civil war there, which is all over the place. And sure, Iran is too, but, the way that Saudi Arabia is just, again, doing exactly what the Russians are doing to Mariupol in Yemen for a longer period of time, causing as many or more refugees. And yet these are the countries that right now, the West is going to for help for offsetting the impact of sanctions on Russia. Like Russia's the only one in the world doing bad things. I quite agree. It's bloody horrible. And indeed, American media is very selective on what they want us to care about. And in fairness, American people and New Zealand people and Western people are selective on what we decide to care about. As I said last week, those millions of refugees from Syria are the same as the refugees from Ukraine, and they're being accepted very differently. And yes, some people say, of course, they're next door neighbors, they're fellow Europeans, and and I get that, but in the end of the day, I mean, the fact is, even when you say that they're Europeans, and somehow that makes them different as opposed to Middle Eastern or African people, I mean, you take the Syrians, they don't, I mean, Steve Jobs, Syrian background, right? I mean, these people go in, they live in America or Western countries for one generation, and people don't even know that they're not Caucasian, right? They blend in just the same. So, that's just a cultural prejudice. And again, and again, when you think about that, another step against African people, just purely they treat them different by appearance or whatever. Yeah, people are dark. They have this way that they'll just make judgments based on appearance, and they'll categorize people differently. Which isn't to say that they shouldn't be accepting the Ukrainians as they are. But again, when you see the kind of really harsh measures taken against other types of refugees who are just as genuine and just as desperate a situation, it does make you realize that, and the fact that the media, and of course that awkward, horrible case of the ABC journalist trying to say, but this is different because these are Europeans, and you don't expect this to happen in Europe. This stuff happens in Europe all the time, especially in that part of Europe. But again, he's trying to come up with an explanation for what people feel, which is that somehow they feel more sympathetic for some reason for these Ukrainians that, frankly are the same with all the pros and cons and all the, mixed stuff. I mean, sure, the Syrians were worried about letting ISIS, in with valid refugees, so they kept all the refugees out. No one seems to be worried about letting skinheads or racists in from, Ukrainian refugees. And why should they? They'd only make up a tiny percent. You should accept all the refugees and just accept there are going to, maybe be some issues. But when it's for Syrians or Africans, it's not acceptable. So a lot of double standards here, and humanity has a lot to figure out. You're absolutely correct there, Wingstar. I agree. Quint Rankid, I don't care. I'm pretty sure most countries probably do take Biden's calls, even if they don't like Biden, or America still has a fair bit of clout in the world, so you'd be pretty foolish not to take their calls. So anyway, I will. I mean, nobody should be taking the calls. If he's offering money or guns, you take the calls anyway. And that's normally, and in the case of America, if you're getting called by the president of America, you're either getting money or guns or having them taken away. So most people will take the call. And they won't do it just to spite Joe Biden. So anyway. Wingstar mentioning it hurt when the media didn't cover the war between Armenia and Azerbaijan, but Ukraine gets all the coverage. Indeed. Well, it's been going on for a long time, but yes, indeed, I know what you're talking about there, and the fact that the war with the recent one with Azerbaijan actually got particularly ugly, and a lot of the stuff which you're seeing in the Ukraine war was actually innovated by what happened with the very recent, actually. There was another flare-up, right? I mean, Nagorno-Karabakh's been going on for a long time. Actually, Wingstar, I was talking last week, I had an Armenian university professor who was a former Soviet ambassador to New Zealand, and we talked a long time about that conflict. Yes, I have a Armenian professor who I love very much. It was a great professor. And yes, indeed, there's 59 conflicts going on in the world right now, and most people only know one or two. And, the suffering that happens in any conflict, you get your house blown up or someone in your family killed, it's the same in all 59 conflicts. If somehow the empathy that we can learn from this can be transferred to the other ones, that would be great, but that's never what happens. Atomic Tom. Female Nazis. I don't think there are very many Nazis to begin with. I'm not sure that gender really matters on that. But yes, I'm going to wrap it up. We are way over time. We're 20 minutes over time. I did kind of start late on the topic. So I hope you enjoyed the show. Everybody, please stay safe. Stay safe from the Rona. Enjoy the spray. If you're in the northern hemisphere, enjoy the cherry blossoms. If you can find a tree where you are. If you're in Japan, definitely enjoy that. If you're in the southern hemisphere, I guess get ready for winter. But yeah, stay safe. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter. If you like the show, please do like. It's all that I do the show for. Like some peanuts. Have a good week, everybody. I will see you all later, and boom, peace. Eric Bailey, I can't help but read the final comments. I'm just going to read it. What? War in Europe? Kamala said there's been peace in Europe for 70 years. Well, yes, Kamala obviously got that one wrong. And Eric Bailey, no matter how much I disagree with Eco Simon, I always hit the like button. Thank you. Because he's a good person. He wants the good things for the world. Nothing else matters. And please, you can disagree. And, my feelings will only get a little bit hurt if you do a dislike. You don't have to spare me. Putin hated that Ukraine wanted to be Ukraine. Okay, I get it. Anyway, I'm going to say goodbye. Thanks all. Have a great week. I'll talk to you later. Peace.